Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Ashley Mailloux, along with our producer Bobby pulling the strings. We have a big weekend of racing, and it extends all the way to Monday with Memorial Day coming up. We actually have a big Memorial Day sale for you right now at shop.drf.com. You want to check that out when you go to purchase anything. Make sure to use the coupon code MEMD25 to get 15% off everything. Ashley, I think of the timing of where we are right now, and you know that Saratoga is going to be coming up soon. Del Mar is going to be coming up soon. I always need help with the 2-year-old races and with the clocker reports. So that would be something that I'd be purchasing right now and taking advantage of that big sale. I always thought, Ashley, that this weekend, this Memorial Day weekend was kind of an underrated weekend in racing as we take a look at the Grade 1 Gamely that we're going to preview at Santa Anita. I thought a really competitive race here. There's no real like monster or no one that kind of scares the heck out of you, but you have a lot of solid horses in here like Be Your Best, who have accomplished some really nice things this year, but kind of threw in a clunker last time out when no Show Sammy Jo and Be Your Best had to face really tough company at Keeneland. And then you have some of the local horses who may not have been facing as tough of company, like Lady Claypoole, Public Assembly, even Liguria, but any one of them could absolutely have a say in this race. I thought it was a really fun race to handicap.
I rarely say that any horse could win it, and I wouldn't, be shocked. I mean, when you look at this group, I really don't think there's a case where I'm shocked. I mean, maybe the shocker would be the 9 Where's My Ring, because there's a lack of turf form, but let's not forget, she had a 103 by her speed figure 2 back. She was third in the Apple Blossom, so it wouldn't be the biggest upset that we've seen. So I think in terms of field of 9 fillies and mares, this is a quality group and a wide open betting board.
Yeah, actually begins 3 consecutive graded stakes races on Monday that kick off the late pick 5 sequence at Santa Anita. Let's look at the Timeform US pace projector for this one. How do they think this shapes up? And I would sort of agree. I think if you're handicapping this race, the one thing you notice is there are not a ton of need the lead types. And I think 2 of these horses actually are entered in a race on Sunday in the Santa Maria, I believe. And then they're also entered in this race. So it'll be curious to see where they go. Where's My Ring, Alphabella? Because if you took Where's My Ring out of this race, that might be one of the horses who could keep Be Your Best honest in here. I think the pace is not necessarily one that I'm expecting them to be lining up and flying early.
I don't think so either. I will say, though, I know the 2 in here, Alphabella, she kind of tracks third early in terms of time form. She could be closer than that. It kind of depends which version of her that we see. I
Yep.
know last time out at a mile in the Wilshire, I mean, they still went just a tick under 47. She was pretty close to the action. So maybe she can press things, especially with the inside draw. But like you, I pretty much agree with this. A lot of the speed is towards the outside.
We can meet the field now, and we start things out with a very sharp horse named Lady Claypoole, who likes Santa Anita. She's in great form. All 4 of her career wins have been over this turf course, and she rattled off back-to-back wins, but then she really jumped up, Ashley, in the Santa Ana. She earned a 93 by her speed figure winning that day, and she beat a horse named Mrs. Astor, who came back to win next time out. So I think everything she's done recently, positives, but this still does feel like another step up for her.
It does. I mean, obviously, I think coming out of the grade 3 event, it was going longer. It was going a mile and a quarter. Now she has to cut back. I think she's facing a tougher group. But even with that said, her form as of late, she's hard to ignore in 2025. A 5-year-old mare that's 3 for 3. It took her a long time to kind of figure it out. And then for her second sort of drink from the water fountain, it took her a while. But now she's consistently finding the winner's circle. And my one question with her, like so many others in here, what's the pace scenario going to be for her? She does draw the inside. She needs some pace to run it. I think that's going to be key, especially on the cutback. But again, wouldn't be shocked if she runs well in here, just knowing that she's trending in the right direction.
Alphabella is really honest. She's a grade 3 winner. She's just not a win machine. She's 0 for her last 8, and she loves to run second. She has 8 runner-up efforts just compared to the 3 career victories, but kind of a model of consistency coming off another runner-up effort last time out, and she's been good on turf and on the dirt. So just one of those horses that's a good use in exotics and tries and supers, but I couldn't quite get to her on the win end in here. Ashley, could you make a case for her?
Not on the wind end, a little bit of a tough sell, but her return to the turf, I mean, it's not like her dirt races were bad. When you look at who she had to face in them, Hope Road, Cavalieri, she's been in sort of deeper waters and she's just come up sort of the runner up in those efforts. But I like that they decided, let's go back to the turf. Her numbers are still comparable. She's always been sort of a lower 90 type for a majority of her career. And for me, I think the positive sign is when we saw her previously on the turf, right? She was going longer, 1.5 miles, 1.3 miles. I wonder if a mile, 1.1 miles is more within her reach. And to see her take a step forward last time out at a mile, I actually think the little added distance will help her once again.
Khinjani did have legitimate trouble in her most recent start. I mean, you look at her 3 races in the US, she hasn't done anything wrong. She's run first, second, and third in those 3 races. And most recently, she ran off a 14.5-month break. So she probably needed the race. When you see troubled trip in the comment lines, usually you know that the horse didn't have the best of trips that day. And there's obviously something here with her, right? There's some ability here. I'm just a little worried that this is kind of a tough spot. Second start back. I'd like to see another race or two from her against this quality of company, but I'm not going to just completely dismiss her because I understand that they think there's some talent and maybe this isn't the strongest race in the world.
When she came over, she didn't have a ton of time here, and she was able to win right off the bench for the new connections. And I thought that was promising. I think looking at her Santa Ana performance, she ran well. Again, she's gotten herself into trouble just about every time we've seen her, which is a little bit of a concern because if she doesn't get in trouble, sure, she can take a huge step forward, but it's sort of a little bit of a pattern with her. And then she had a long layoff. So I think the way that she ran back off the layoff, she ran very well. Gino, I think, looking at the distance, probably not her preferred distance. She didn't get a ton of pace help in there. She was still closing very strong. So I would say she's a sleeper in here. It really is just going to depend, again, on trip and the value you're going to get on her. I think if you like Khinjani in here, you have to demand a price.
Yeah, she did have a weird trip too. She was last. She's kind of wide going into the turn. She backed up and then she came on again. So there's really some ability. She definitely ran in spots. We moved to public assembly. Ashley, she's really impressed me in her last couple, especially coming out to the West Coast. She wins a first level allowance back in March. Then in April, she was in the Royal Heroine. It was a competitive race. It wasn't necessarily the strongest group in the world. She beat that field pretty easily, and she was down on the inside. We have a replay of her where she was in a little bit of trouble, too. She was sort of saving ground. She got shuffled back, and there was a moment right about here, if you're watching the replay, where things got tight, and she had an opening, and she was able to kind of bust through that. I think she's really moving in the right direction. This, again, is another step up in class for her, but I just like the way that she's going right now. She can get the distance, no problem, because we saw her win at 1.25 miles 2 starts back. I think for her and for a lot of these fillies and mares in here, it's going to come down to trip. Can she sit sort of close enough in a race where we're not sure how much early speed there's going to be? She might be naturally one of the more tactical, I think, in this group. I give her a long look in this spot. What do you think about public assembly?
I think she's really intriguing. I'm very curious to see how she'll be supported for this outfit.
Betting, right?
Her price. Yeah, it's tough because, again, she has to jump up, right? She's a 4-year-old filly. She doesn't have the seasoning that the other mares have, but I agree with you. I think she's very talented. I think, okay, draw a line through the debut. She had a ton of issues. I think next time out, she probably needed the race, but more importantly, every race since her second career start, she has not been that far back. I think that is the key with her. As you mentioned, she's tactical. She might have the jump on others in here. Love that she took a huge step forward last time out. Another one that I think, again, she went from 1.25 miles to a mile. Sometimes that doesn't work. It did work out for her because she did get the pace in front of her. But I think 1.125 miles, again, she should be, 3 lengths off of it, 3.5 off of it early.
Yeah,
and
that
that
sounds
would
about right.
put her in a good, position early on.
No Show Sammy Jo hasn't done a whole lot wrong in her 5-year-old career. So she finished 7th last time out. You look at the field and you go, okay, she didn't run all that well. That was a really tough group, Ashley. That field was loaded. I mean, if you go horse by horse through that group, any of the horses that were in front of her, if they were in this spot, they would be a major player in there. And that was also the first start for No So Sammy Jo since November. So she's now going to go second start back after 5 months off. And she just didn't really get much of a race shape in there. I know the fractions were a little quicker, but there just wasn't a whole lot of passing. The way that the race shaped up, Cahill Beach was towards the front. Schwazia was saving ground inside. Excellent Truth was right behind that. There just wasn't a whole lot of movement there. I mean, I don't have many knocks on her overall. Flavian Pratt jumps aboard. I think this is a great spot for her too. Graham Motion does this sometimes. He knows that horses that he may have out in the Midwest or on the East Coast that would be like a strong contender in a grade 2 or grade 3 race. Well, a lot of times you send them out west and they could be very live in a grade 1 when the depth isn't quite as much out west. I think she's just a major player in here.
It's interesting too when you go back to the Long Island. Who do you want out of that race? I think both, runners ran well. Be Your Best did it on the front end at 1.3 miles, which can be very hard. The horses that were sort of chasing the pace or pressuring her, I think they finished 5th and 6th respectively. And then to see No Show Sammy Jo rally from that far off of it really speaks to her talent. She only misses by a nose. I don't mind her going longer. It worked out in that event, even though they didn't go all that fast. But to me, kind of like her on the cutback. You mentioned Graham Motion shipping, just looking at the last 5 years. It's not like he goes out to Santa Anita every day, Gino. He's 7 for 29. He's almost 60% in the money. He really knows which horses to send out there and kind of spots them well. So in a lot of ways, I do think she is one of the main two in here, maybe the horse to beat.
And another barn, very good conditioner who knows when to send horses out west would be Brendan Walsh, trainer of Expensive Queen. So Walsh was second in the 2021 Gamely, won the 2022 Gamely, and in 2023 finished fourth. Last year, Forever After All was third. So he has shown a lot of support for this race and always seems like he has a good feel on a horse who's going to compete really well in this race. And you look at Expensive Queen. She's only raced one time in the country, and her speed figure is a little bit light, but visually, Ashley, she was extremely impressive. She was inside. She waited. They tipped her out at the top of the lane, and it was just at the right time, and she absolutely flew late, and she was still a little bit green. Now, I kind of like to see that as a gambler when horses win and they're still green, because you feel like, gosh, they won and they're still figuring it out. If they can put it all together, they might be able to have an even more efficient race. I just don't know if she's quite at this level with some of the others who are more proven, but it's really tough to knock what we've seen from her, especially the only race in the U.S.
It is tough to knock. And you kind of look at the way that race played out. Mystifying pressed the pace throughout, was like a length or two off of it early, hung around there for second. And, a couple of the closers did well. I think the pace setters in there, though, were bombs. They were 50 and 60 to 1, and they backed out of it. So it's tough for me to read necessarily that race. It's not tough for me to read Brendan Walsh. I mean, his numbers first start in North America are very good. I don't think he gets looked at, even though the stat is ridiculously well, and he had her ready to roll. She has to step up. She has to improve. I do think in terms of a trip, she's probably mid-pack early on, or actually maybe in that back half of the flight. I just don't know if she's that quick early. But I do think an interesting thing here to note is Luis Saez rode her in that race at Keeneland. And when you think of rider styles, Luis Saez can be aggressive and can really finish well on a horse. I think Kazushi is going to fit her very well. And I think that's a nice move on their part, which Kazushi doesn't really ride for this outfit, right? So just something to know.
Liguria is a multiple graded stakes winner. I think we know these connections a little bit too. Trainer Michael McCarthy and jockey Umberto Rispoli had a nice win last weekend over at Pimlico. I mean, just another horse in here who's just a major player. Like, you look at the overall form, her form fits. She's now going to make her third start as a 5-year-old, but really her third start after a long layoff where she missed her entire 4-year-old season. There might even be some more upside in there with her, Ashley. I can't really knock what she's done. She beat next out winner Tirapudi, who came back to win a grade 3. If she gets a setup, she will come running, and she just feels like she's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, she is very intriguing if she gets the right setup. And kind of looking at her performances time and time again, you got to remember her 2 performances this year were off a really long layoff, over a year, had to switch barns, and obviously she needed some time. Rashmi, the one that won the Megahertz, very nice horse for Jonathan Thomas. And as you mentioned, the runner-up in the effort last time out in the Buena Vista comes back to win with a nice figure. So it's going to become a little bit of a trip-dependent thing, but I can't really knock her recent form and have to think, now that they're going to go a little bit longer, go 1 mile and an eighth, I don't think she's going to see the fractions that she saw at the mile, which should put her somewhat closer to it. And maybe that puts her in a better spot, but she's coming in here off a career best.
Be Your Best won the Pegasus World Cup Filly and Mare Turf a couple starts back, and that was her 3rd consecutive win. She got really sharp. She got really good for Southie Joseph Jr., and it was when they started getting aggressive with her and kind of putting her right on the lead or sitting close. She faced a really tough group last time out over at Keeneland, and honestly, this is a great spot for her for a grade 1 race where there's not a whole lot of early pace up front against a softer group. She's probably one of the more proven in here. I'm not sure exactly what price you'll get from a betting standpoint, but if I'm playing pick 5s, I think the pick 5 starts here. She's a horse who I kind of have to use on my ticket, Ashley, because I think there are versions of this race where she can either get loose or have a really cozy trip up front.
Yeah, she is dangerous if she gets an easy lead in here. It's simple. If she gets there and she catches a breather early, she could be gone. It's interesting to see Safi ship. The last, 5 years, he's gone out there a handful of times specifically to Santa Anita and makes the decision, but comes up with a really good race, as you mentioned, sort of a race that lacks pace. And I'm going to attribute last out probably needed a race. Typically going back, she needs a race off the freshening, and the fact that they did go fast, but they slowed things down for 3/4. So I don't know really how to read it other than it was a grade 1 event. It's the Jenny Wiley. So I wouldn't be surprised to see her bounce back. The only thing I will say is when Horacio De Paz had her, she didn't really run well at Santa Anita. So we'll see what she does here.
Rounding out the field is Where's My Ring. She's only been on the turf a couple times. They were earlier on in her career. She's probably a better filly now, and she does have some big races. I think if she's in this race, Ashley, because she is cross-entered in a race on Sunday, she is a really, really intriguing horse because she could be naturally one of the quicker in here and be a horse that I could see with the outside draw of them wanting to get aggressive with and try to get her on the lead or try to at least have her sitting close to be your best. So I'm not sure if she necessarily would be a horse I'd pick to win, but she would change how I handicap this race a little bit if she is in the body of this field come Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the connections decide to do. If they're going to go for the Santa Margarita, the same decision has to be made for Alphabella here. But if you go to that, you're facing Splendora. So not that either of them are necessarily easy races. I can't really assess her turf race other than it really wasn't good. But she also went to the shelf after that, was going a mile and a 16th at Del Mar. I don't know. I will say her last two, and actually just now as a 4-year-old filly, she, to me, seems like she's taken a step forward in terms of what she's been able to do. But she's a little inconsistent. And I know a lot of people liked her in the Apple Blossom as maybe the horse to be able to beat Torpedo Anna. She was third best in there, and actually just don't think she ran that well, especially off the 103 buyer speed figure. So if you like her here, I guess you have to really demand value, knowing that she ran okay last time out and she lacks the turf edge.
It's a field of 9 that line up for the grade 1 Gamely on Monday. And Ashley, as you pointed out, I wouldn't talk a person off of any horse in here. Like if they came in with a strong opinion liking one of these horses, I would say just demand your value because it's wide open, but I would not talk you off of anyone. It's one of those types of races as a bettor that I had a lot of fun diving into. Who are you going to end up with putting as your top selection here?
This is a struggle. I mean, I usually don't say this, that a race that any horse could win it, but I won't be shocked. And I go to the 7 Liguria, and I don't want to say with hesitation. She is my top pick, but she does need things to go right for her, right? I do think she's a little trip dependent. Really is going to come down to the fractions. I have to hope that someone presses Be Your Best. And we have similar thought process here is we're using all the same horses underneath, but we're trying to find someone that might offer a little bit of a price in the top spot. And I'm just hoping that third start off the bench, she can take another step forward. And again, she's going to need the setup.
Yeah, and maybe it was because Public Assembly was a horse who I wasn't on last time out and was so impressive. I think our colleague Mike Beer was all over her when she won the Royal Heroine. So I'll go back to her because she really impressed me last time out. But again, if you're looking at playing this race, it is a tough way to start the late pick 5 on Monday. Don't forget about that Memorial Day sale. You want to get all that you can before it finishes up on Monday. Good luck playing the races at Santa Anita.